Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Rodriguez, and the topic of my speech today will be on morality, specifically why I believe morality stands apart from religion. The specific purpose of my speech will be to persuade my audience that moral behavior can exist independently of religious belief. Specifically, I'll be diving into 3 influential elements that I believe are very vital to this persuasive speech, which are the biological roots of morality, the power of civic and social cues to replicate religious effects, and the role of institutional strength in sustaining ethical behavior. Now, I want the audience to imagine a world without religion. Would kindness, honesty, and fairness vanish overnight? Many people may ask themselves this, and many people assume that morality collapses without belief in a higher power. However, while that assumption has shaped laws, education, and social norms for centuries, what if morality isn't actually tied to divine authority at all? Today, I want to persuade you all of a simple fact. Morality and moral behavior can and does exist independently of religious belief. Morality is not dependent on religion, and instead, it emerges directly from our bodies and our biology, from social incentives, and from civic institutions which raise us and our young that shape how we treat one another. I personally have researched this topic using psychology, sociology, and philosophy, and today I plan on sharing evidence from scholars who study morality across cultures and institutions. Let me be clear. This speech is definitely not about dismissing faith. It is about recognizing that morality is a shared human trait, accessible to both believers and non-believers alike. My first point, morality is biologically rooted. Let's start with biology. Evolutionary psychology shows that moral instincts existed long before organized religion. Dennis Krebs, who is a psychologist from the Simon Fraser University, explains that kin selection and reciprocal altruism shaped cooperation among the early humans and even among some primates. In other words, caring for your family and your kin and helping those who help us are instincts built into our biology and of the biology of our close relatives or our close DNA relatives. Krebs also studied groups like the Aka in Central Africa, and the Martu in Australia. These communities enforced moral rules through social feedback, but not through religious doctrine. People cooperate, share, and punish selfishness without invoking divine authority. This evidence shows morality is a survival strategy. Empathy and fairness existed before religion. They are actually a part of what makes us human. My second point, civic and social cues replicate religious effects. Let's talk about social psychology. Will Gervais and Ara Norenzayan conducted experiments where participants exposed to religious cues, being words like divine or images of sacred rituals, became substantially more generous and more trusting. But here's the key. The same pro-social effects occurred when participants were actually exposed to civic symbols, such as flags or community reminders. According to Gervais and Norenzayan, reputation and social monitoring drive moral behavior, even without religion. This means morality is tied to visibility and accountability. People behave ethically when they know there are others watching, whether it's God, the law, or even their neighbors. This brings me to my third point. Cross-cultural evidence supports secular morality, with secular signifying non-religious. Let's look globally. Chizoma Osafor conducted a comparative study across North America, Europe, and the sub-Saharan Africa. She found that honesty, altruism, and fairness are very present in both religious and secular populations. Schools, laws, and fairness are present in both religious and secular populations, which indicates that civic institutions foster these values through education and policy. Ossofor writes that modern, non-religious institutions can promote empathy and cooperation just as effectively as religious ones can. This proves moral values are culturally flexible. Whether through religious rituals or civic education, societies can cultivate cooperation and empathy. This brings me to my fourth point. Institutions sustain moral progress. Let's talk about institutions. Brian Garvey studied how changes in population structure, media, and enforcement mechanisms influenced moral progress and regression. He points to reforms like the abolition of slavery and the expansion of voting rights as examples of morality advanced by institutional change, not religious revival. But Garvey also warns of a moral rollback when institutions do weaken. For example, anonymous online platforms often reduce reputational concern, leading to more norm violations, as people are free to do whatever they want with no direct repercussions, as they are, as in the name, anonymous. Garvey's network theory shows that strong institutions improve moral behavior by increasing visibility and feedback. When systems are strong, morality thrives. And when they break down, moral standards actually fade. So that brings me to my final question. What does this all mean? Morality is a shared human trait, rooted in biology, reinforced by civic cues, and sustained by a strong institution. It is not dependent on religion. As our world becomes more secular, non-religious, and diverse, we must invest in systems that promote cooperation, empathy, and fairness for everyone. Religion can inspire morality, but it is not the only path. Ethical behavior belongs to all of us, believers and non-believers alike. Thank you for your time.
Vamos a irlo ahora con que